The ending of Elize, Shadows of a Woman is tragic not because it tries to justify Elize Matsunaga's actions, but because it shows how years of trauma, manipulation, and emotional abuse culminated in a single irreversible decision. By the time the film reaches its final act, Elize believes she's about to lose the one person who gave her life meaning, her daughter. That fear ultimately drives her to commit a crime that destroys every remaining chance she had of protecting the child she loved. Throughout the film, Marcos is portrayed as charming, generous, and affectionate on the surface, but increasingly controlling behind closed doors. After convincing Elize to leave behind her old life, he repeatedly betrays her trust through multiple affairs while belittling her whenever she confronts him. The situation becomes far more dangerous once Elize learns that Marcos has been telling his mistress she is mentally unstable. She even discovers brochures for psychiatric hospitals, suggesting he may have been planning to institutionalize her, just as he once claimed his first wife had been. Whether he truly intended to follow through or not, Elize becomes convinced that history is repeating itself and that she is being replaced by another woman. Her greatest fear, however, is not losing her marriage. It's losing custody of her daughter. After speaking with her divorce lawyer, Elize learns that Marcus's wealth, influence, and her own past as a former escort could work against her in court. Even though she has evidence of Marcus's infidelity, she is told that adultery alone is unlikely to determine custody under Brazilian law. For someone whose entire identity has become wrapped up in motherhood, that possibility is devastating. The final confrontation pushes her beyond her emotional limits. Marcos not only mocks her past and threatens to take their daughter away, but also cruelly weaponizes the childhood sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of her stepfather. The insults reopen wounds she has spent her entire life trying to escape. When Marcos laughs after she points the gun at him, convinced she'll never shoot, Elize finally pulls the trigger. The film presents the shooting as a spontaneous act born from overwhelming emotional collapse rather than a carefully planned murder. However, everything that follows is deliberate. After killing Marcos, Elize immediately realizes the consequences of what she's done. She briefly calls emergency services before hanging up without speaking, suggesting part of her knows she should confess. Instead, panic takes over. She spends the next several hours dismembering Marcus's body, placing the remains into suitcases and abandoning them in a remote wooded area. She later lies to investigators, claiming the heavy luggage seen on security cameras contained expensive wine bottles. The dismemberment is not portrayed as an act of revenge or cruelty. Instead, it's shown as a desperate attempt to hide the crime long enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Even then, Elize struggles through the process physically and emotionally, repeatedly stopping as she listens to old family videos that remind her of happier times. Ironically, those efforts accomplish nothing except making the eventual discovery even more horrifying. The film repeatedly returns to Elize's past because it explains why she reacts so intensely to the possibility of losing her daughter. As a child, she experienced abandonment after her father repeatedly cheated on her mother and left the family. Her stepfather then sexually abused her for years despite her attempts to resist. Those experiences leave Elize with deep psychological scars. She becomes determined to give her own daughter the stable family she never had, while remaining terrified that another man could abuse her child the way she was abused. That fear resurfaces when her stepfather casually reaches toward her daughter during a family gathering. Although his gesture appears harmless in the present, Elize relives her own childhood trauma and violently attacks him. The scene demonstrates that Elize increasingly interprets the world through unresolved trauma. By the time Marcos threatens custody, she no longer believes the legal system can protect either herself or her daughter. Although Marcos behaves cruelly throughout much of the story, Elize, Shadows of a Woman avoids reducing him to a one-dimensional antagonist. He genuinely loved Elize at different points in their relationship. Their early romance, marriage, and the birth of their daughter contain moments of real happiness. Home videos shown throughout the film reinforce that their relationship was once built on genuine affection. However, Marcus's repeated infidelity, emotional manipulation, insults, and threats steadily destroy that foundation. His tendency to dismiss Elize's feelings, blame her for their fertility struggles, mock her past, and threaten her mental stability creates an increasingly toxic marriage. Even so, the film never suggests his behavior excuses his murder. Instead, it presents two painful truths simultaneously. Marcos was emotionally abusive, and Elize's decision to kill him remained an unjustifiable crime. The ending returns to reality after spending much of the film inside Elize's memories. Following her arrest, she records a heartfelt message from prison for her daughter. hoping that one day the child will understand her mother's version of the events. It is a deeply bittersweet moment because we already know that reconciliation may never happen. The closing title cards reveal the real-life outcome. Elize Matsunaga was convicted of murdering and concealing Marcos Matsunaga's body. After confessing, she received a prison sentence of 16 years and 3 months. Although she was later released on parole after serving roughly 10 years, Marcos's family successfully cut off contact between Elize and her daughter. According to the film, Elize has never seen her daughter again, not even in photographs. Ultimately, Elize Shadows of a Woman is less interested in the murder itself than in the long chain of events that made such a tragedy possible. The film explores how childhood abuse, abandonment, insecurity, emotional manipulation, betrayal, and untreated psychological trauma can accumulate until a person reaches a catastrophic breaking point. None of those factors absolve Elize of responsibility for killing Marcos or attempting to conceal the crime, but they do provide context for why she believed she had no way out. The cruel irony is that everything Elize did was motivated by her determination to keep her daughter in her life. Instead, her actions guaranteed the exact outcome she feared most. Marcos lost his life, Elize lost her freedom, and their daughter grew up without either parent. By ending with Elize's message from prison, the film leaves us not with a sense of justice or revenge, but with the image of a family permanently shattered by one irreversible act. It's a sobering reminder that while trauma may explain someone's choices, it cannot erase the devastating consequences that follow.